Part 29. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 281. The second prince looked at the maid who spoke in confusion. The maid in pink took the opportunity to give him a look. The second prince suddenly thought. This palace maid has always been his favorite. She is usually clever and smart, and she is the interpreter who understands him best. Could it be that she took advantage of the chaos just now and dealt with the pufferfish meal? He was suspicious, but with the emperor nearby, he couldn't ask. There is no pufferfish in Jinghua Palace, Miss Ling. Is it possible that your hexagram calculations are not accurate? Queen, the divination of the daughter of the people is correct. The palace maid in pink glanced at concubinen, and her mind was racing. Although the second prince dotes on him, he is just greedy for her body. After a few days, when you get tired of it, you will discard it like a piece of shit. If she helped the second prince avoid what happened today, there would be no way concubinen would ask the second prince to give her a title. After making up her mind, the palace maid in pink said again, "Your Majesty, there is no puffer fish in Jinghua Palace, and the second prince will not take the risk of eating it knowing that it is poisonous." The emperor glanced at the maid and waved his hand to Mr. N. Eunuchin turned around and entered the palace. Facing the large table of rich meals, I identified each item one by one. The queen winked at Aunt Gui beside her. The nanny immediately led the people straight to the imperial dining room of Jinghua Palace. Not long after, Mr. N walked out of the palace, waving a fly whisk. The queen took a look at Mr. N, but didn't see anything on his face. As the chief eunuch, naturally he would not let others see his inner thoughts easily. He said respectfully, reporting to the emperor, "There is no puffer fish in the second prince's meal." The second prince felt happy and glanced at the pink-clad palace maid with admiration. Concubine Anne's hanging heart was half relieved. Not long after, Grandma Gui led the people back. Looking at her face, the queen's heart sank. Concubine was relieved. "Your Majesty, Muir has always been filial and obedient. How could he do anything with his own body?" He glanced at Ling Chu with contempt. "It seems that Miss Ling has not mastered the mystical arts. She has been with Master Xianyi for many years, but she has fallen in love. I got the name of your master." The queen's face was sullen, and her heart was full of disappointment and anger towards Ling Chu. Ling Chu ignored concubine Anne's sarcasm. "Your Majesty, can a daughter of the people give a hammer to the Jinghua Palace?" The emperor frowned slightly, not understanding what she meant for a moment. A smile flashed in Ning Chui's eyes. Wei Feng on the side gave a thumbs up in his mind. The second prince couldn't help but change his face when he remembered what Ling Chu had smashed with a hammer in the Jingxiuyujian workshop. "Bold, do you know where this place is?" Ling Chu led people to break into Jinghua Palace, and the emperor saw the second prince fooling around with the palace maids in broad daylight. Concubine wanted to kill her with a stick. Such a great opportunity, how could she miss it? While the second prince was speaking, he also shouted sharply, "How dare you, this is the palace, how can you be allowed to do whatever you want?" The emperor was suspicious by nature, and the nervousness of the second prince could be seen at a glance. Ling Chu glanced at concubine and said nothing. But he took out the small hammer from his sleeve pocket. "Your Majesty, I will only hit you once, and I promise not to hit you more." The emperor looked at the small and delicate hammer in her hand. After a long while, he nodded. "I will make an exception today and allow you to smash it." The second prince's heart sank. He knew that his reaction just now meant that the emperor must have been suspicious. Concubine still wanted to stop her, but the emperor looked worried. She could only swallow her words for fear that it would be counterproductive. With the emperor's permission, Ling Chu immediately went to the dining room. Ning Chui silently raised his heels. The second prince was anxious, but he did not dare to make any move in front of the emperor. The people in the imperial dining room all stared at Ling Chu unkindly, wanting to kick her out. I just didn't expect that the emperor would also come. 3 royal chefs and a dozen kitchen servants were anxious to salute the emperor. The chief chef, the chef, saw Ling Chu looking around and felt uneasy. He said bravely, "There is no puffer fish in our dining room. Aunt Gui has already checked it before." "Really?" Yu Chu was already feeling uneasy, but when he saw Ling Chu's dark eyes, he was even more shocked. But in an instant, she despised herself again. She was just a little girl, what was there to be afraid of? "Girl, if you don't believe it, you can check it yourself." As soon as Yu Chu finished speaking, Ling Chu waved his hand and hit the right wall with the small hammer. The imperial chef's expression changed drastically. When he saw clearly that it was just a small and exquisite hammer, he quickly breathed a sigh of relief. It was only that breath that was halfway relieved. "When I saw the collapsed secret door, my legs immediately went weak. There are many people in the imperial dining room at the moment, but it is so quiet that you can hear a pin drop." Mother Gui and the maid beside her looked surprised. They searched the dining room for a long time, but they didn't find a secret door in the wall. The chef and the handyman were kneeling on the ground, their faces ashen. Concubine and the second prince stared at Ling Chu, wishing they could eat her alive. The queen gave Aunt Gui a wink. Mother Gui immediately led people into the dark room. Soon 2 palace maids came out carrying a large wooden barrel. There were 2 pufferfish in the barrel, still alive, and they looked like they had just been brought into the palace. Nanny Gui and another palace maid brought out a large wooden basin with ice cubes in it and 3 puffer fish frozen on top. The palace maid who came out at the end was holding a large lotus leaf, which contained the eyes, skin, and internal organs of the puffer fish. The emperor's face is as black as ink. Regardless of the pain in his feet, the second prince rushed over and kicked the leading chef. "You bitch, you are so brave. You dare to secretly eat pufferfish without telling me." The imperial chef subconsciously wanted to defend himself, but when he saw concubine Anne's sharp eyes, he could only kowtow to the emperor. "Your Majesty, the little one deserves to die. These puffer fish have nothing to do with the second prince. They were secretly bought and eaten by the little one." Ling Chu suddenly said to the imperial cook, "Who did you kill with pufferfish poison? Why don't you recruit him for real?" The imperial chef was speechless. The second prince did not go to the banquet, and naturally neither did the people waiting around him. The imperial chef didn't know at all that Princess Dingyuan and the others were poisoned. The second prince glared at Ling Chu secretly, limped forward, and knelt down. "Please tell me from my father, I don't know that the imperial chef secretly eats puffer fish. My son is not strict with his subordinates, so I beg my father to punish me." The emperor lowered his eyes and looked at the second prince, a flash of disappointment flashing in his heart. Without his permission, even if the imperial chef had 100 courage, he would not dare to secretly eat puffer fish. "Your Majesty, please calm down. I will definitely let Muir follow the tutor to learn how to serve as a servant." Although concubine was a little uneasy, she didn't have much fear in her heart. Although the second prince's secret consumption of puffer fish violated palace rules, in the final analysis it was just a matter of greed, and it was not a serious crime of treason. It was not a big mistake. The emperor was angry because he was afraid that the second prince would be accidentally poisoned. "Get up, your leg is still injured, wait until the hospital comes and let him take a good look at it." The second prince felt relieved, knowing that today's matter was over. Ling Chu watched with cold eyes as a ghost filled with resentment rushed towards the second prince. "Votes are coming. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times." Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 282. As soon as the second prince stood up from the ground, he suddenly felt a cold wind blowing towards him. Before he could react, he suddenly fell down. Ling Chu made a secret with his right hand and quickly popped out a drop of cow's tears. The second prince was stunned for a moment, and suddenly felt a coldness in his eyes. A sudden anger surged in my heart. How could he be knocked down by a gust of wind inexplicably? Could it be Ling Chu's fault again? The second prince turned his head and glared at Ling Chu. But when he turned his head, he didn't see Ling Chu, but saw a ferocious-looking ghost, stretching his arms to strangle his neck. Su Chef's eyes were scarlet, and the hatred in his heart had broken through his previous dignity. He originally thought that he had mixed the pufferfish skin into Mrs. Song's fish soup according to the instructions of Concubinen and the second prince, and then framed the case on Miss Ling. Concubinen will follow the agreement and ask the second prince to accept his sister as his concubine. But he didn't expect that his sister would be silenced just after he died. Concubinen couldn't see the ghost. When she saw that the second prince had just stood up and fell down, she thought he had injured his foot and was unable to stand firm. He shouted angrily at the who hurried over with a sullen face, "What are you doing standing still? Why don't you help the second prince up quickly?" The emperor frowned and turned to tell Eunuchan, "Suinsen Yuen is coming." In response, Mr. An turned around and left in a hurry. The two eunuchs serving the second prince hurried to his side and tried to help him up. Suddenly, he saw him grabbing his neck with both hands and kicking his legs on the ground. "Second prince, second prince." The two eunuchs panicked and stepped forward to help. Unexpectedly, the second prince lay on the ground and struggled wildly without being helped up. Concubinen was shocked and yelled, "Slave dog, how dare you murder the prince in front of the emperor and me? Mother, spare your life, I didn't kill the second prince." The two eunuchs were frightened and let go of the second prince, kneeling on the ground and kowtowing to Concubinen. Concubinen didn't see the eunuchs' movements clearly just now and thought they were murdering the second prince. However, the two eunuchs had already let go of their hands, and the second prince was still kicking and struggling on the ground. "Looks like someone has strangled the neck." "Muir, Muir." Concubinen's expression changed. She ignored the and rushed towards the second prince. Concubinen failed to help the second prince, and was kicked to the ground by him during the struggle. No one knew what happened to the second prince, and the maids and eunuchs from Jinghua Palace gathered around him, trying to help him up. But they were all knocked away by the ghost. This incident made the palace maids and eunuchs change their expressions, and they looked at the second prince with even more frightened eyes. Although no one spoke, a thought came to their minds: why does the second prince seem to be entangled in something dirty? Even though they were afraid, in front of the emperor and the noble concubine, those people could only step forward to save the people. While the ghost let him go to deal with the maids and eunuchs, the second prince got up and wanted to run away. When he turned around, he found a palace maid standing behind him. The palace maid said nothing, just looked at him dreamily. The second prince has seen this kind of admiring look many times and is not moved at all. Although this palace maid has been quite favored by him recently, at the moment of life and death, how could the second prince remember to dote on her? Subconsciously, he wanted to push the opponent out to block the ghost. In his panic, the second prince failed to see that the maid's feet were off the ground and floating in front of him. Just when the second prince pushed the maid out, the admiration in her eyes turned into resentment. With a sinister look on his face, he floated to the side of the second prince and grabbed him. The second prince realized something was wrong. However, even though he had martial arts skills, he did not break free. The palace maid had no expression on her face, tied him up with a piece of silk, and hung him up in the air. The second prince was shocked and angry, and shouted angrily at the palace maid, "You dare to be such a lowly maid, and you won't put me down yet." The maid's face was expressionless. Concubinen's face was full of horror. "Your Majesty, save Muir." After all, he was his own son, and the emperor didn't want anything to happen to the second prince. As soon as the emperor moved his feet, Ning Chui blocked him in a flash. "Your Majesty, no." Ling Chu glanced at Ning Chui appreciatively. Concubine was so angry that she almost broke her silver teeth, and she wanted to kill that bastard. Just in front of the emperor, he did not dare to curse. The emperor looked at the person standing in front of him, and his heart was filled with relief. Although this kid had always been stern with him, he didn't hesitate to stand in front of him when he saw that he was in danger. He still recognized him in his heart. Concubine was almost mad at the scene in front of her. But the second prince had not yet been rescued, so he had to suppress his anger and beg, "Your Majesty, please save Muir quickly, I beg you." Seeing Concubine crying so hard that the pear blossoms were covered with rain, the emperor felt soft in his heart. Nang Chui glanced at Wei Feng calmly. Wei Feng drew out his embroidered spring knife and raised his arms, calling out, "Guard you!" This shout alerted the guards in the palace. Shuishwashwa rushed into Huajing Palace and surrounded the emperor. Seeing that Concubine was so angry that she almost couldn't hold her breath and just stuck her face out, Ling Chu almost couldn't hold back the smile on his face. The emperor glared at Nang Chui angrily. I knew in my heart that he didn't want to put himself in danger, and it was hard to blame him. The second prince is in danger, and the emperor will not leave him alone. But before the emperor could speak, the furious Concubine had already ordered the guards, "Rescue the second prince quickly." The guards looked at the second prince in mid-air and were at a loss what to do. To shoot with a bow and arrow. The second prince was in mid-air, out of reach. Concubine couldn't see the ghost, but she guessed it was right next to him. Just when the guards were about to fire their arrows, Concubine shouted again, "Wait a minute. Ordinary bows and arrows may not be able to harm the ghosts, but Concubine heard that ghosts are afraid of fire. Go quickly and bring the wine jar." The emperor knew that Concubine was going to attack with fire, so he didn't say anything and acquiesced to her approach. And a maid hurriedly brought a wine jar, and the guards soaked the arrows in wine and lit them. Ling Chu, who had been standing aside silently, stood up with a pale face and panic, "Your Majesty, you must not." Concubine glared at her fiercely. If the emperor hadn't been there, she would have wanted the guards to shoot this bitch. The second prince is her life, and no one can stop her from saving him. Concubine turned her head and ordered the guards with a sullen face, "Shoot." Ling Chu was neither sullen nor angry, and silently stepped aside. She has already advised her that Concubine insists on going her own way. If anything happens, she cannot be blamed. The guard let go and shot arrows towards the second prince. The maid next to him was standing next to the second prince, her eyes dull. The ghost on the ground floated to her side when the guard was about to shoot an arrow, trying to take her away. But the palace maid ignored him and just clung to the second prince stupidly. Seeing the arrow coming, the second prince suddenly stretched out his hand and pushed the maid forward hard. Thanks to Liang Baby's monthly ticket support. Thanks to 20230530115415940712976, Chen, 641,417, Vision, Wind and Lightning, Dusty Memory, All Living Things, Light Gauze Makeup. 20170318191430835, Strong Wind and Lightning, Yanglia Bank, UN1, 20230730113702642, 202-302-08431051, Bingling, Betaxi's head is sleepy, not, 20230121012702243, A, Z, CHLWCH, Chen Rong, 2023053011541594071, 2976, China Fuse, The Little Book I Can't Enough, supported by recommendation votes from book friends such as Chong, Prose, B.A., Wei Yi, Falling Leaves Haikyuu, Ad, Wind on the Blue Planet, Colorful Life, Sihide, etc. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 283. The maid was pushed hard by the second prince and threw herself forward, but was hit in the abdomen by an arrow. A burst of fire suddenly appeared on his body. The palace maid, who had always had a dull look, grabbed the arrow in her abdomen with both hands and let out a scream. The cry is shrill and eerie, even with a heart-rending feeling. Second sister, Chef Su, was extremely sad and floated towards the palace maid. But he was knocked away by the evil spirit on her body. The guard's arrows were still shooting. When Su the cook flew backwards, he was shot in the back. The body also instantly ignited with fire. The palace maid over there screamed louder and louder, her eyes shed tears of blood, and the resentment in her body increased rapidly. Even the evil spirit transformed her entire ghost. Until this moment, no one in Jinghua Palace knew that the dirty thing was actually Luliuliu, the second prince's personal maid. Seeing this strange scene, many palace maids screamed, rolled their eyes, and fainted. Concubine was overjoyed and immediately ordered the guards to shoot again. Ling Chu originally planned to sit back and watch, but now his expression became serious. That green willow's cry is wrong. Although the guards' arrows were dipped in wine and set on fire, they were ordinary things, and Luliu was now a ghost and had lost consciousness. Ordinarily, the arrows and fire could not hurt her at all, and she should not feel any pain. But the cry of the green willow was full of despair and resentment, like a mother animal losing her cubs. Ling Chu quickly made the secret and applied it on his eyes. His eyes fell on Luliu's belly, and his expression couldn't help but change. Ling Chu raised his feet and rushed towards the guard quickly. "Stop!" Concubine smiled proudly and shouted angrily at the palace maid and beside her, "Stop her! These are the maids and eunuchs who serve the second prince, and they always obey Concubine's words." They all rushed forward to stop him. Concubine turned around and ordered the guards again, "Shoot again." Ning Chui frowned and was about to step forward to stop those people for Ling Chu. He saw that she had already stopped. Ling Chu looked at Concubine with cold eyes as she tried to die. Concubine thought she could get rid of Green Willow by shooting her. Unexpectedly, Luliuliu was so stimulated that he went crazy and turned into a fierce ghost. He turned around and rushed towards Concubine, pinching her neck. "Beloved concubine." The emperor wanted to step forward to save people, but was surrounded by Ning Chui and the guards. After all, she was a concubine that she had loved for many years. The emperor couldn't bear to see concubine being killed by the ghost, so he just wanted to step forward to rescue her regardless of the obstruction. However, he was stopped by the queen mother, who came in a hurry. The emperor had no choice but to order his guards to come forward and rescue him. It's just that this time the arrows fired by the guards were all knocked away by the green willow. One of the guards wanted to cut her with a sword, but the green willow was made of the spirit of resentment and could not hurt her at all. The cook Su saw that his dependent sister turned into a ghost, and his resentment also broke out. The ghost appeared. He rushed forward ferociously, grabbed the second prince, pulled him to a tree, and tied him to the tree. The sword could not hurt, and the guards fired again with lighted arrows. It's just that all the cooks were sent flying. Some of the guards were injured by his evil spirit. In the chaos, an arrow was shot into the main hall. By the time someone discovered it, the fire was already burning and getting bigger and bigger. Almost all the guards in the palace gathered together. Although there were many people, in addition to protecting the emperor, they also had to protect the queen mother. In addition, a team must be sent out to put out the fire. The rest went to deal with Luliu and Su Chui. When the second prince saw concubine being choked by a palace maid, he was so shocked that he shouted, "Concubine! Concubine was frightened and angry at this time. She didn't expect that after this lowly palace maid died, she would dare to arrest her and her son regardless of their dignity. I wanted to curse, but I was afraid of irritating her. She could only look at the emperor in panic, begging him to save her and her son. Although the green willow turned into a puppet, it was still unconscious. He pinched Concubine's neck, but did not strangle her to death. Hearing the cry of the second prince, he looked back and Gigi laughed a few times. He grabbed Concubine, floated her to the second prince, and tied her to a tree. After tying up Concubine, Greenloo floated towards the second prince, took his arm, rested her head on his shoulder, and looked at him lovingly. "Second prince, do you like this servant?" The second prince used to dote on Luleu, but now facing such a ghostly face, he could not speak. Luleu immediately changed his face. "Second prince, what's wrong with this slave? Why do you want to drive the slave away? It's that Hongtang who seduced you, right? She wants to kill the slave and take away the position of concubine." Before he finished speaking, Luleu suddenly became frightened. Furthered, with wandering eyes, shaking his head desperately. He rushed to Concubine and begged for mercy. "Mother, don't kill me, please, don't kill me. Child, I have a child, don't kill my child. You all deserve to die, you all die, and you are buried with my children." Luleu looked crazy, laughing and crying, speaking incoherently. The guards wanted to save people, but they were afraid of hurting the second prince and concubine. Just when everyone was helpless, Han Yao suddenly said, "Your Majesty, Miss Ling is a disciple of Master Xian Yi. Why not let Miss Ling rescue the second prince and the noble concubine?" Han Yao was entangled by a water puppet last time. She didn't expect to recover so quickly, and the water puppet disappeared. When Ling Chu saw the emperor looking towards him, he could only put aside his doubts first. "Your Majesty, it's not that the daughter of the people didn't want to save her. Luleu died unjustly, and her body was too evil. Now she has turned into a fierce ghost. If we do it forcefully, I'm afraid she will be stimulated, and one careless move will hurt the second prince and his wife." Concubine. The Queen Mother has always loved the second prince and concubine, so naturally she does not want anything to happen to them. Since Miss Ling knows mystical arts, why didn't she stop those two ghosts earlier? When the Queen Mother returned, she wouldn't have stopped her unless it was the daughter of the people. When the imperial concubine asked someone to take action, the daughter of the people tried to persuade her twice, but concubine insisted on her own way. "Miss Ling, is there no other way?" The daughter of the people is ashamed that she was unable to learn the skills of her master because she was weak since she was a child. The Queen Mother's eyes fell on her face, and she saw that her face was astonishingly white and her body was thin. She looked like she was not in good condition, so she could not accuse her of anything. Wei Feng cursed in his heart. If he hadn't seen Miss Ling's ability, he might have believed her words. "Your Majesty, I heard that the Taoist priests at Kongsugwan are quite capable. Do you want to send someone to invite them over?" The Queen Mother glanced at Ning Chui lightly, but said nothing. Going to Kongsugwan to invite people, it takes a lot of time to come and go. Those two puppet souls will not just wait for them to invite people back. Far water cannot quench near thirst. The Queen Mother still refused to give up. "Miss Ling, did Master Xianyi give you any magic tools and talismans to exorcise ghosts?" "She naturally has the magic weapon to exorcise ghosts. There is no shortage of talismans. But drawing talismans also requires energy, and Ling Chu was not willing to waste it on concubine and the second prince." Thanks to 201711190722184121 2017051717000439 just want happiness and other book friends for their monthly support. Thanks to Ixixi, Why I Won't Grow Old, Chen, Forget Me Not, Daoyo. EB, 140212184021428, bet taxes head is sleepy, not, 2017031819143085, silent blessings, UN1, Chen, 202110221207411050, forget me not, Zinks and Mother, Alice. A. Colorful Life, 854-729, A. Purple Leaves, All Living Things, Chen Rong, Strong Wind and Lightning, Why You Don't Grow Old, Stars and Sky, Kixi Yao. China Fuse, CHLWCH, Prose. BA, Can't Think of Ming, Life is Bright. Zhangqin, White Clouds in the Sky L, Silver Star, King Shichuang, Ning, 20230208431051, XINZI 77. 140212184021428, 641,417. Hyde, 20230216687754 and other book friends recommendation votes supported. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 284. Chapter 284 Demotion. Your Majesty, as the saying goes, to untie a bell, you must tie the bell. Only the second prince and concubine can save themselves from this matter. Although Ling Chu didn't want to save concubine and the second prince. But the grievances on Su's brother and sister were too strong, and now they have become serious ghosts. If they were not taken in, something big might happen, and it would not only be concubine and her son who would die. Those palace maids and eunuchs may not escape death. Although the two ghosts can be taken away by force, it will definitely take a lot of effort. If she is not careful, she will hurt herself. It took a lot of effort for her body to heal well, but she was stupid to risk her own life to save the second prince and concubine. The Queen Mother frowned. How could she resolve her grievances since the palace maid was dead? Back to the Queen Mother, if you want to avoid harming the second prince and concubine, the safest way is to resolve the resentment of the two ghosts and let them stop taking the initiative. The Queen Mother did not care about concubine Anne's life or death, but the second prince had to save her. Those two people are dead, how can we resolve their grievances? Ling Chu raised his head and looked at the two ghosts on the tree. Liu stayed close to the second prince, looking at him infatuatedly at one moment, and roaring angrily at the other. Her eldest brother, the Kuxu, stood aside with an angry look on his face. He originally wanted to kill the second prince, but Luliu wouldn't let him get close. Su Shi Luliu had always been the second prince, and was used to competing with other palace maids for favor. Now she is delirious. She probably thinks that Chef Su is the palace maid who competes with her for favor, so she doesn't allow him to get close. Su Cook couldn't kill the second prince, so he couldn't help but become frantic. Suddenly he turned around and rushed towards the maids in Jinghua Palace, intending to kill them all and avenge his second sister. Although imperial concubine and the second prince were not good people, those palace maids were innocent, and Ling Chu could not afford to watch them die in vain. Had no choice but to take out the Bodhi whip and hit Chef Su. Su Cookman was in pain. Although he stopped attacking, he did not give up. He stared at everyone with his red eyes. Ling Chu didn't want to anger him, so he whipped him once and then stopped. Chef Su, are you wronged? You might as well say it. As long as you don't harm innocent people, maybe I can help you seek justice. Chef Su looked at her coldly and said nothing. Han Yao felt a pain in her heart when she saw the second prince, who was tied to the tree in a state of embarrassment and lost his former handsomeness. Seeing the green willow fool lingering next to him again, he felt angry again. Miss Ling, since you have a magic weapon, why don't you just kill this ghost? The Queen Mother looked at the whip in Ling Chu's hand with a heavy gaze. Han Yao's words probably hit her mind. The county master is speaking lightly. If I kill him and irritate Luliu, what if she kills the second prince and the noble concubine? Can the county master be able to bear this? Han Yao's face darkened. When she saw the emperor frowning, she could only hold back her anger and apologize. Miss Ling, don't be upset. It's Wen and who didn't think well. Ling Chu glanced coldly and looked away. Chef Su, if you don't believe me, you should believe the emperor and the queen mother, right? You can tell me any grievances you have, and the emperor and the queen mother will definitely give you justice. Chef Su glanced at the emperor and the queen mother, his lips moved, and he wanted to speak, but he swallowed the words when he reached his lips. Chef Su, as long as you let concubine and the second prince go, no matter how many grievances you have, I promise to give you justice. Su Cook is full of resentment. He and Luliu are both dead. So what if the emperor can give him justice? Moreover, it is impossible for the emperor to kill concubine and the second prince for a cook like him. Su Cook committed suicide by biting the poison because of the green willow. It can be seen that in his heart, his sister, whom he has depended on since childhood, is more important than his own life. Chef Su, if your sister can't resolve her grievances and stays in the earth, she will eventually lose her soul and be unable to be reincarnated as a human being. Ling Chu's words finally touched Chef Su's heart. It was Hong Tang who killed my sister, and I want her to pay with her blood. Come here, take that cheap maid down. But in the eyes of the queen mother, a palace maid is not much different from the cats and dogs. The face of the palace maid in pink clothes changed before. When she saw the nun beside the queen mother walking towards her, she kowtowed in fear. This slave knows his crime and begs the queen mother to spare his life. The queen mother didn't blink an eyelid. She could save the second prince, let alone abandon one maid, she wouldn't care about 10 of them. Hong Tang was even more frightened when she was dragged away by the nanny. She knew that if she was dragged away, she would definitely die. Second prince, save this slave. The second prince took one look and looked away, unmoved at all. Hong Tang's eyes were full of despair, and she finally realized that the second prince's usual love for them was all fake. For his own sake, he could abandon them as palace maids at any time. She is still young and she doesn't want to end up like Luliu. Hong Tang struggled to break away from the pull of the nanny, and quickly rushed to the emperor and knelt down. Your Majesty, spare your life, this slave did not intend to poison Luliu. It was the imperial concubine, who forced the slave to do it. If the slave is disobedient, the imperial concubine will kill her. Let others kill the slave. You bitch, you competed with Luliu for favor, poisoned her to death, and you dared to frame her for me. Ling Chu suddenly said, Hong Tang, for no reason, why did concubine instruct you to poison Luliu? Su Cook hated Hong Tang, and even more hated concubine. Your Majesty, the eldest daughter of Kang Anbo Mansion was poisoned to death by Miss Xiao, who was ordered by Princess Ping Yang. Mrs. Kang Anbo asked the imperial concubine to help her make the decision. The imperial concubine ordered the younger one to mix pufferfish into Sister Song's fish soup, and then framed it for Miss Ling. Luliu found favor in front of the second prince, knowing that the second prince had been trying to win over King Jing and King Dingyuan, but had never succeeded. The second prince has always been dissatisfied with them. Luliu inquired about the seating arrangement of Princess Ping Yang, and she happened to be sitting at the same table as Princess Dingyuan and the others. Concubine asked him to mix pufferfish skin into Mrs. Song's fish soup. In order to please concubine and the second prince, Chef Su simply put pufferfish skin into Mrs. Song's fish soup on their table. Su Chef originally thought that he had poisoned Princess Ping Yang and Princess Dingyuan. After achieving great achievements, concubine will definitely let the second prince accept Luliu as his concubine. Su Chef had a good plan, but he didn't expect that Ling Chu would be a factor, causing his plan to fail. The emperor sullenly decreed that concubine be demoted to the title of Xianfei, and Princess Ping Yang was demoted to the title of county lord. The emperor's move was not only to resolve the grievances of the Kuksu and save the second prince. This matter also involves Princess Jing and Princess Ding Yuan, so it cannot be treated as if nothing happened. As for Mrs. Kong Amber, the emperor did not punish her because she had just lost her beloved daughter. Ling Chu raised his lips when he saw concubine and was so angry. Although he did not kill her, being demoted from a noble concubine to a virtuous concubine was more uncomfortable than killing her. Thanks to Mary Todd for her monthly support. Thank you for the dusty memory, 201703181914308835, Yangliuan, Pros. B.A., King Shichuang Chuang, Shangsuan Yu, UN 1. Forget Me Not, Free Walking Taurus, Chi Ziwan, Yangliuan, White Clouds in the Sky L, Why Do You Grow Old, Bingling, the hacked book friend keeps rechecking in, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Falling Leaves No Autumn. Ad, XXC, Colorful supported by the recommendation votes of Life and other book friends. Thanks to Hungzio and Xiaoxiang for supporting book friends. I have been suffering from a cough that has driven me crazy recently. I have taken a lot of cough medicine, and the more I take, the more I cough. What's even more depressing is that even though I can't eat well and sleep well, I actually gain weight instead of losing weight. I suspect that the medicine I took was not a cough medicine but a weight gain medicine. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 285. Chapter 285 Anger. Princess Pingyang was almost mad. She didn't expect that after being punished by the Queen Mother, the Emperor would demote her to the title of County Princess. Hongtang originally thought that the Emperor and the Queen Mother would spare her life because she was forced to tell her story. But the Queen Mother was unmoved and signaled to her nanny to gag her and drag her down without mercy. Even though Chef Su wanted concubine to die, he also knew that the Emperor would not kill her. Let the Queen Mother kill Hongtang, which can be considered as revenge for her sister. The evil spirit on the cook's body began to dissipate. He let concubine go. Although there was no danger, concubine was not happy at all. Her title of imperial concubine is gone. However, although concubine was filled with hatred, she did not show it on her face. First he thanked the Emperor and the Queen Mother with a grateful face, and then begged the Emperor to rescue the second prince. Concubine not only had the skills to figure out the Emperor's thoughts, but she was also beautiful and favored the Emperor more than the Queen. After the Emperor helped her up, he patted her hand comfortingly and said, "Don't worry, my beloved concubine, I won't let anything happen to Muir." Concubine stood up and looked at the Emperor with admiration. "I know that the Emperor is the best father in the world. Muir has you, which is his greatest blessing." Ling Chu looked at the sky speechlessly. She had some doubts. Isn't the Emperor really a fool? In front of so many people, he and concubine Xian, started to spread dog food. The Queen was so angry that she almost tore the veil, and her original joy at seeing concubine being demoted was gone. Concubine Xian and the Emperor looked at each other affectionately for a while, then looked away and turned to look at Ling Chu. "Miss Ling, since you have mystical skills, cast a spell to collect the green willows first and save the second prince. If you have anything to say, please speak slowly." Ling Chu did not move and said softly, "My dear concubine, the daughter of the people has long said that you should not provoke Luliu. Luliu died tragically, and she was already resentful. The Empress even asked the guards to shoot her with rockets, and now she has become a fierce puppet. If she took action forcefully, she would definitely kill the second prince." The word virtuous concubine struck concubine as extremely harsh. But the second prince could not be saved, so no matter how angry she was, she could not express it. The Emperor patted concubine's hand and asked Ling Chu, "I see that Luliu is unconscious, how can I resolve her grievances?" Although Su Kitchener was taken care of, his sister Lulia was a little more troublesome. "Chef Su, your sister. Your Majesty is the son of heaven, and he is protected by dragon energy, so Chef Su did not dare to approach him. It was a bit far away, but he kept looking here. Su saw that the emperor promised to help him seek justice, and he actually kept his promise and demoted concubine An's rank. Seeing Ling Chu mention Luliu, he couldn't wait for her to finish her words and said impatiently, "I hope the second prince will agree to marry my sister as the prince's concubine." "Insolent," the queen mother shouted angrily with a stern face. Concubine stared at Chef Su with blazing eyes. Lulia was just a lowly palace maid, but she dared to dream of being a prince and concubine. Han Yao clutched the handkerchief tightly, her eyes fell on the second prince and Lulia clinging to his arm, and for a moment, she turned around and left calmly. Lulia is just a palace maid, and now that everyone is gone, how can she be a prince's concubine? Su Cook's evil aura had mostly dissipated, but after hearing concubine An's words, the evil aura suddenly rose up again. He stared at concubine Xian with a ghostly look. "Concubine Xian, did you forget what you promised me back then? My sister is already the second prince's wife, and she is also pregnant. If he hadn't been poisoned by Hong Tang, how could he have turned into a ghost?" The queen mother frowned. She didn't expect that Lulia was pregnant, but she felt a little pity for the child in her belly. Concubine didn't feel it was a pity. Instead, she was glad that she let Hong Tang poison the cheap maid to death. It's just a child, still unborn, and concubine doesn't care at all. The palace maid has a low status, how can she give birth to a child for her muir? As long as the second prince ascends the supreme throne, many noble ladies from high families are vying to give him children. My sister is dead. Even if the second prince marries her as his concubine, it will not have any impact on him. The second prince can still marry other girls as his concubine in the future. Concubine was very ambitious and wanted the second prince to ascend to that high position, so she naturally wanted to choose a young lady with military power in her family as the prince's concubine. How can we tolerate a dead and lowly palace maid occupying the position of the prince's concubine? After all, no rich lady likes to be crushed by others, even by dead people. Ling Chu stood quietly watching the show, not intending to help anyone. These two people are working together. One is venting his anger on his niece and wants to poison her, and the other is framing her sister so that she can marry the second prince. Neither of them are good things. Ling Chu was happy to see them turn against each other. Concubine and Chef Su are in a stalemate. Suddenly there were two loud bangs. Everyone subconsciously turned their heads to take a look. A woman smashed two corpses on the ground. Han Yao was holding a torch and pointing at the corpse, slightly raising her chin and shouting angrily at Chef Su, "Chef Su, put down the second prince, or I will burn your body. County Master Wenan, you are crazy. If you want to die, don't drag everyone down." Han Yao glanced at Ling Chu contemptuously and ignored her words. She asked the second prince's guards to dip their bows and arrows in the blood of black dogs. She didn't believe that they couldn't deal with just two ghosts. The emperor and the queen mother frowned slightly. Neither of them expected that Han Yao would threaten them with the corpses of Chef Su and Kuliu. I wanted to reprimand him, but it turned out that Chef Su seemed a little apprehensive, and I couldn't help but feel a move in my heart. They don't want the second prince to marry the palace maid Luliu as the prince's concubine. It would be a good thing if the Wenan County Lord can force them to stop. Concubine looked at Han Yao with admiration. Ling Chu sneered in his heart, since someone wanted to die, why should she stop him? She simply let go, raised her feet and retreated towards the entrance of Jinghua Palace. Seeing the scrupulous look on Chef Su's face, Han Yao was even more proud. She put the torch in her hand on the corpse and said, "Hurry and put down the second prince." Chef Su was completely angered by Han Yao's actions. As the evil energy in his body surged rapidly, he rushed towards Han Yao with red eyes. "Fire the arrow." Han Yao quickly gave orders to the guards behind him who were holding bows and arrows, and at the same time, the torch in his hand quickly ignited the two corpses. The body was burned and shot with arrows stained with the blood of a black dog. Su Kuk was about to jump on him, and suddenly he screamed in pain. The evil energy on his body exploded, and the palace maid and who was close screamed and was knocked away by the evil energy. The smile on concubine Anne's face froze. Before she could react, she was driven back a few steps by the evil aura and fell to the ground in a panic. Ning Chui I knew something was wrong when she saw Ling Chu retreating. She immediately and her guards protected the emperor and the queen mother and quickly retreated to the entrance of the palace. The firelight hit Lu Liuliu's body, and she screamed. Two sharp and long ghost teeth quickly grew out and bit into the second prince. Thanks to two book friends, Kai Yuning and 184,947, for their monthly support. Thank you Forget Me Not, 201703181914308835. Scarred, 641,417, Wind and Lightning. 854-729, The Goat Song and the Story of the Eyes. Kingsha Makeup, UN1, Distant Starry Sky. DC, Chen, This Moment, Laugh With You, Evening Breeze Carrot. Crystal at Diamond, Zhen Zeman, A. Purple Leaf, All Living Beings, China Fuse, Silent Blessings, Beta 11 Can't Wake Up, Love Passed By, Jin Yingzi, Dao Scar Hong, Tao Yao. EB, Hangzhi Chui Shang. CHLWCH. 1402121840214228. Hacked book friends keep checking in again. Why do you get old? Simple is good, colorful life, Yanglia Bank, 20201201201144042943, Star and Sky, Panax Noto Ginseng. DB, Yuk 333, 20090811, Dusty Memory and other book friends recommend votes to support it. Thanks to the book friends Xiaoxiang and Hengzia for their support. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 286. Chapter 286 Death. Seeing the green willow biting his neck, the second prince started to struggle in fear. Although he avoided his neck, Luliu bit him on the shoulder. Concubine watched helplessly as the second prince was bitten, and she was so frightened that she screamed, "Muir!" The second prince was bitten. Han Yao's heart trembled, and she quickly said to the guards, "Shoot that cheap maid down for my county master." Immediately, one of the guards changed direction and shot toward the green willow. The second prince's bodyguards are good at archery, and in the blink of an eye Luliu's body was covered with arrows. The pain caused by the black dog's blood forced Lulu to open his mouth. Seeing Chef Su and Lulu screaming in pain, Han Yao was overjoyed and asked the guards to continue shooting. The second prince shouted desperately, "Father, mother, concubine, please save my son." Concubine quickly shouted to the guards around her, "Go and rescue the second prince." Seeing the guards rushing toward the second prince, Ling Chu said coldly, "Xianfei, you are asking them to die." How could concubine care about the life and death of those guards? She only wanted to order them to rescue people. And the guards ignored Ling Chu's words. Seeing Lulu let go of the second prince, this was the best opportunity. As long as they rescue the second prince, it will be a great achievement. Glory and wealth are at your fingertips. When the second prince ascends the throne in the future, those who saved the second prince will be the new emperor's confidants and will definitely be reused. The wages of avarice is death. These guards were determined to die, but Ling Chu did not stop them. It doesn't matter whether she is cold-hearted or cold-hearted. This little life was hard-earned for her, but she didn't want to give her life in vain for these people. Just when the guards flew over to rescue the second prince, the ghost of Lulio suddenly went crazy, opened his fangs and bit the nearest waiter. The ghost of Chef Su was also at this moment, rushing towards Han Yao with a ferocious face. Just when everyone thought Han Yao was about to be killed by Chef Su, a golden light suddenly exploded from her body. Hook Su the kitchen servant was ejected in one fell swoop. Han Yao smiled proudly. Just quickly his smile froze. Su the cook was ejected and accidentally fell next to concubinen. New grudges and old grudges all came flooding back. Regardless of the burning pain in his body, Chef Su rushed forward to grab concubinen, and bit her neck with his fangs bared. Concubinen screamed in terror, rolled her eyes and fainted. The maids and women beside her were so frightened that they fled in all directions. "My beloved concubine," the emperor shouted, subconsciously trying to rush over. But he was stopped by Ning Chui. The queen mother also stood in front of him. Han Yao's heart sank, and relying on her protective jade pendant, she ordered the guards to rush over to save concubinen. Although the guards were a little uneasy, they all knew that concubinen was the emperor's favorite concubine, so they could only rush forward and shoot Chef Su. Cook Su wanted to bite concubinen to death, but the arrow stained with the blood of a black dog hit him, and he had to let go. Jaja laughed twice and rushed forward to bite the guards. Han Yao shouted angrily, "Kill him quickly." Sous Chef wanted to kill Han Yao, but he couldn't get close to her. Although the guard is a black dog, the kitchen servant may have suffered a loss, so why would he stupidly let the guard shoot him? While dodging, he intentionally or unintentionally rushed toward Han Yao. Han Yao had a jade pendant for protection, and knew that the cook Su did not dare to get close, so she was not afraid at all. But the maid and woman beside her were scared. While he was running around in a panic, he didn't know who tripped Han Yao. Just as she lunged forward, an arrow passed by her. Han Yao was instantly frightened and fell to the ground hard. Although her hands were bruised, fortunately the arrow did not hit her. He breathed a sigh of relief and was about to get up from the ground. Hush Chef rushed over to her in a sinister manner and grabbed her by the neck. Han Yao's eyes widened in disbelief. While using both hands to break off the cook's hand, Han Yao glanced around in panic. When she saw the jade pendant lying broken in two on the ground, she realized that although the arrow just missed her, it had hit her jade pendant. Seeing Han Yao being choked by Chef Su, King Dingyuan and Han Lin were worried. He wanted to step forward to rescue him, but after killing several guards, Lulio turned around and rushed towards him. They had to protect the emperor and the queen mother. The emperor is protected by dragon energy, and the ghosts cannot get close to him. Ning Chui and Wei Feng, the guards in royal robes, were full of murderous aura and evil spirit, and Lulio was also afraid of them. But the queen mother and those guards may not be able to escape Lulio's vicious hands. As a disciple of Master Xianyi, if Ling Chu did nothing and allowed Li Puppet to bloodbath the palace, her master's reputation would be ruined if word spread. Ling Chu smiled and took out the Bodhi whip. It would be a pity if this opportunity to rescue the driver was missed. Just when Lulio was about to bite a guard, Ling Chu quickly rushed to the emperor and the queen mother, stepped on the sky and chanted a spell, and whipped out the Bodhi whip in his hand. Hand in the middle of Green Willow's body. Lulio turned around fiercely and rushed toward Ling Chu ferociously. Ning Chui's expression changed, and she was about to rush over at all costs. Ling Chu had already fired the second whip. After being whipped 3 times, Lulio retreated unwillingly and floated back to the second prince. Yao Yao. Over there, Han Song and Princess Dingyuan saw Chef Su biting Han Yao's neck and rushed over in fright. Han Song flew up and kicked Chef Su. Perhaps the cook was just a ghost, and Han Song's leg went directly through his body. Su Cook opened his mouth. Han Yao fell to the ground softly, unconscious from pain and shock. Su kitchen server roared and rushed towards Han Song, but he dodged to avoid it. Su kitchen server was angry. When Princess Dingyuan was about to help Han Yao up, he turned around and bid her. "Concubine, be careful." Han Song was extremely anxious and rushed over to stop Chef Su, but unfortunately he could not hurt him at all. Just when Han Song was sweating, a small hammer rushed over and hit Chef Su. Su the cook flew a few feet away and hit the ground. But he didn't give up. He straightened his body, stood up and rushed towards Ling Chu. Princess Dingyuan's face changed drastically and she blurted out, "Chu, be careful." Ling Chu heard it, but had no time to respond. Liu is not an ordinary ghost. Those whips just now were inevitably caused by her using mystical skills. At this time, his face turned a little pale. When he saw Su the cook rushing over, he hurriedly controlled the small hammer to hit him. After being hit twice more, Chef Su realized that the hammer was not an ordinary thing. He was afraid and did not dare to rush forward again. Instead, he rushed back to the second prince. The second prince was frightened and shouted in horror, "Miss Ling, save me quickly." The emperor and the queen mother both looked at Ling Chu. Ling Chu knew what they were going to say and shook his head directly, "Your Majesty, forgive me. It's not that the daughter of the people is unwilling to save the second prince. She is really powerless." End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 287. Chapter 287 gritted his teeth and agreed. As soon as Ling Chu finished speaking, the Queen Mother's face darkened. I think this is her excuse. Because she is annoyed with concubine, she is unwilling to save the second prince. He was about to reprimand him, but when he looked carefully, he saw that Ling Chu's forehead was covered with fine sweat, his face was frighteningly white, and his lips had no color at all. His words were weak and his body was shaky. He felt as if he would faint in the next moment. The Queen Mother thought of the fact that she had just protected her and the emperor, and hit Lilia with a whip, and then hit Su the cook. He also remembered that she was sent to a Taoist temple for foster care by the Ling family because of her poor health since she was a child. No words of rebuke can come out of your mouth. As a person who has been in poor health since childhood and has been sick all year round, Ling Chu knows how to make himself look like he is not in good health without having to pretend. Seeing that the Queen Mother swallowed back her words, her face looked ugly. Ling Chu staggered, took out the handkerchief, covered his mouth and coughed. She did not cough for a few times and then stop like normal people, but the cough became more violent. One after another, he coughed until he was in a daze, and his weak body trembled, as if he could die at any time. Xiaoji, with a worried look on his face, supported her with one hand and gave her back some relief with the other. The wound on the second prince's shoulder that was bitten by green willow was burning and painful, and he was also itching in his heart and liver. The green willow is still clinging tightly to her. What frightened the second prince even more was that Chef Su was still staring at him with his fangs bared, as if he would pounce on him and bite his neck off in the next moment. Although there were guards, no one could save him. The second prince had to beg Ling Chu again, "Miss Ling, as long as you can save this prince, I can give you whatever you want." Ling Chu didn't speak, but no one could accuse her. Everyone can see that it's not that she doesn't want to say it, but that she can't. Because she was still busy coughing. Wei Feng looked at Ling Chu and wondered. He had known her for a while, but he had never seen her coughing like she was about to die. Glancing at Ning Chui, I saw his brows were furrowed and the veins on the back of his hands were bulging. Wei Feng felt ashamed. It seemed that Miss Ling was not pretending that the adults were so worried. Ling Chu was coughing and almost died. The second prince was still begging her for help. Wei Feng was worried that Ning Chui would not be able to hold back and chop him with a knife. The second prince begged a few more times, and Ling Chu slowly stopped coughing. Concubine just woke up and learned that she had been bitten by Chef Su. She was terrified. She was not only afraid that she would die, but also that the emperor would dislike her. I wish I could tear Han Yao to death, who failed to achieve anything but failed. But the second prince has not been rescued yet. Concubine could only endure her anger, took off all the jewelry on her body, and gave it to Ling Chu. Miss Ling, as long as you rescue the second prince, I will give you a big reward. Ling Chu did not take her things, but turned sideways and said softly, my dear concubine, the daughter of the people has long said that she wants to save the second prince. It's useless to beg me. Only he can save himself. Concubine made a move, and the fire in her heart was about to explode. Her Muir is a prince, and he will be the emperor in the future. How can he marry a dead person as the prince's concubine? Concubine disagreed. Liu's admiring eyes disappeared visibly, and her expression suddenly turned resentful, and the evil aura on her body began to rise again. Su Cook's evil spirit exploded, and he opened his fangs and was about to bite the second prince. The second prince was afraid that his neck would be bitten off, so he said quickly in fear, don't bite me, I am willing to marry Luliu as my concubine. Concubine was shocked and angry, Muir, you. She wanted to object, but she could see that the sharp fangs of Lulu and Chef Su were resting on the side of her son's neck. They were afraid that the second prince would be bitten to death as soon as she spoke her objection. I had to swallow the words that came to my lips. The second prince did not want to die, and he was not as resistant as concubine. Luliu is already dead, and marrying her as a concubine is just a title for her. As long as he lives and ascends the throne, no one will dare to criticize him for such a trivial matter. The second prince is not afraid of not being able to marry a noble girl. As long as he can aspire to the throne, there will be many ladies vying to marry him and become the queen. The second prince did not want to die and could only grit his teeth and agree. He put away the expression of fear and disgust on his face and looked at Luliu affectionately. Luliu, haven't you always wanted to marry me? How about I marry you as the prince's concubine? You put me down, and I will ask Qin Tianjian to pick an auspicious day. When the Ministry of Etiquette prepares the phoenix crown and harem, I will marry you. Okay. Looking at the second prince affectionately, and then being seduced by his words, Luliu's evil aura suddenly dissipated. With a shy look on his face, he asked, Second prince, are you really willing to marry a slave as the prince's concubine? The second prince seemed unable to see the gloomy look on Luliu's face and nodded gently, of course it's true, but you have to put me down first before I can go to the Qin Tianjian and the Ministry of Etiquette to organize the wedding. Okay, I will let you go now. Luliu had always wanted to marry the second prince, and finally got his promise. Her pale face was filled with happiness. Although Chef Su was not very happy, he still put away his fangs and stepped aside for the sake of Luliu. Luliu untied the ribbon, grabbed the second prince and floated down. The second prince breathed a sigh of relief and couldn't wait to open the green willow and hold his arm. Afraid of irritating her, he endured his nausea and comforted her, you go back first, and when the Ministry of Etiquette has finished the preparations, I will send someone to notify you and marry you. Lulu reluctantly let go of his hand and returned to Chef Su. It's just that their bodies were burned by Han Yao, and they didn't know where they could go back. Seeing that they did not leave, the emperor frowned, Miss Ling, look. Even though the emperor hadn't finished speaking, Ling Chu also knew that he wanted her to collect the two ghosts. It was hard for Ling Chu to shirk this matter. After all, she had collected so many ghosts by setting up a fortune-telling stall before. If she said she couldn't collect them now, it would be the crime of deceiving the emperor. She will continue to accumulate merit in the future and cannot block her own path. Ling Chu took out the altar and said to Lulu and Chef Su, you are ghosts and cannot stay in the human world. I will put you away first and let you come out after the second prince has arranged the wedding. Su Cook did not object and nodded in agreement. Su Chu was grateful to Ling Chu. He asked the second prince to marry Lulu as his princess. He didn't have high hopes, but he didn't expect that she actually persuaded the second prince to agree. He was actually very afraid of Ling Chu's whip. He knew that he and Luliu couldn't beat her at all. Chef Su didn't know why Ling Chu wanted to help them, but he was smart enough not to ask. Ling Chu made a plan and took away Luliu and Su Chui. Concubine immediately said angrily, "Miss Ling, these two ghosts have hurt me and the second prince. I want them to lose their souls and never be reincarnated forever." As soon as Concubine said these words, the altar immediately shook violently. Thanks to two book friends, Yuk 333 and Yu Yunji, for their monthly support. Thanks for the silent blessing, Betaxi Can't Wake Up, Ixixi, 20230121012702243, Sankai. DB, Can't Think of It, Why He Grows Old, 20170318191430835, UN1. 2021102212074150, Evening Breeze Yanglia Bank, Alice. A. Forget Me Not, Happy Reading. 202302084311051, This Moment, Laugh With You, China Fuse, Scar Red, Star and Sky, 200908111, Lalang Zixi, CHLWCH, Taurus Walking Freely, Kingsha Makeup, Yuk 333, Chiziao, Moonlight Marble, Blue Enchantress 62, Ixixi, Dust Covered Memory, Fei Wenli, Blue Enchantress 62, Ixixi, Dust Covered Memory, Daoyo. EB, Daoyo. EB. Pros. BA, the book friends who were hacked kept checking in again and waiting for book friends' recommendation votes to support it. Thanks to Xiaoxiang Hongzia book friends for their support. End of this chapter. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 288. Everyone can see how angry the two ghosts of Chef Su and Lulu are. The expressions of Concubine and the second prince changed. Ling Chu pasted a piece of talisman paper on the altar and then said coldly, "My dear concubine, the second prince has personally promised to marry Lulu as his concubine. If he goes back on his word, my altar cannot trap them. If so, if you anger those two ghosts again, have you thought about the consequences?" The second prince's face was gloomy. He thought that since Ling Chu had harvested Liu, there was no need to marry her. Concubine Anne's face was even more ugly. How could she be willing to let such a lowly maid become the princess for her son? Liu and Chef Su dared to hurt her and Mu her, and she would never spare them. The Taoist priest at Kongsyuguan is also pretty good at Xianshu, but I don't believe they can't even deal with two mere ghosts. Concubine Anne planned to send someone to invite them into the palace soon. Since Miss Ling is in poor health, I won't bother you with this matter, just leave the jar and I will let someone else handle it. Okay, then give it to the concubine Xian. Ling Chu could probably guess what concubine Anne was thinking. She didn't say anything about this, smiled, and signaled Xiaji to hand the altar to the maid next to concubine Anne. The emperor looked at the second prince with a sullen face, feeling a little disappointed. Liu is just a palace maid, even giving her the title of concubine is already promoting her. The emperor did not expect that the second prince was so frightened that he agreed to it himself before he even asked. It's hard to talk back in public. I have taught you that a person cannot stand without faith, an industry cannot prosper without faith, and a country cannot prosper without faith. Since you personally agreed, let Qin Tianjian choose a day for Lulu to be buried according to the rules of a prince and concubine. Yes, I will obey my father's teachings. The emperor saw that the second prince responded in a well-behaved manner and did not continue to reprimand him. Thinking of the wounds on his and concubine Anne's bodies, he just wanted Ling Chu to take a look at them. Unexpectedly, before he could speak, he heard a panicked scream, "Girl, girl, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me." Ning Chui's face changed slightly. Just as he was about to step forward, he raised his feet and paused again. Ling Chu closed his eyes and heard the trembling in Xiaoji's words. Knowing that he had scared her, he felt a little guilty and hurriedly pulled off her sleeve quietly. Concubinen, the second prince and Han Yao were bitten by Lulu and Chef Su. Ling Chu did not want to treat them. So he fainted before the emperor could speak. Ling Chu pretended to be dizzy and couldn't tell Xiaoji in advance in front of everyone. He could only use his body to block her and quietly tugged on her sleeves. Noticing her movement, Xiaoji secretly breathed a sigh of relief, but did not dare to show it on his face, still looking worried. No one doubted that Ling Chu was faking. After all, she had coughed so violently just now that she was about to die. If Ning Chui hadn't been keeping an eye on her secretly and happened to be standing in the right position, he wouldn't have noticed her little moves. Knowing that Ling Chu was faking it, Ning Chui's worries disappeared. But he quickly frowned again. If this is discovered, it will be a crime of deceiving the emperor. The emperor saw Ling Chu's eyes closed and he fainted in the arms of the maid next to him. He also frowned. He was still hoping that Ning Chui would be able to regain consciousness, but this girl Ling's body was so weak that she would faint at any time. From now on. Seeing Ning Chui frown, she thought he was worried about Ling Chu's health. He sighed in his heart, that's all, it's rare to see him being interested in a girl. If he objects, it will be terrible if this boy really never marries for the rest of his life. It is better to marry someone with poor health than not to marry him at all. After a few words of self-comfort, the emperor turned to the beside him and said, Mr. Xian. Xiaoji's heart skipped a beat. If this was discovered to be a fake, it would be terrible. Ning Chui's heart tightened. Just as he was thinking about how to help Ling Chu block the imperial doctor, he saw her quietly tugging on Xiaoji's sleeve. Ling Chu was not worried. Although she was pretending, her health was really not good. Even if the imperial doctor diagnosed her pulse, it would only prove that what she said was true. The imperial doctor came very quickly. The little who sent the message was so anxious that the imperial doctor thought it was the emperor's body that was not in good condition, so he didn't bother to ask any more questions, so he picked up the medicine box and hurried over. When he arrived, he found out that it was not the emperor who was feeling unwell, and the imperial doctor breathed a sigh of relief. But when he found out that he was asked to treat a girl, he felt unhappy. He almost died just now. As long as the emperor was watching from the sidelines, the imperial doctor did not dare to complain. After looking around and asking questions, he said respectfully, back to the emperor, this girl was born with the disease in her mother's womb. She looks fine on the outside, but she is very weak on the inside. You should not be stimulated or tired on weekdays. If you take good medicine and take good care of yourself, you may be able to live for another 3 to 2 years. Otherwise, people may disappear in the blink of an eye. Ning Chui's face was frighteningly dark. Although he knew that Ling Chu was pretending to be faint, and Ning Chui also knew that her health was usually not good, he didn't expect it to be so bad. Suddenly there was a stabbing pain in my heart, which made me feel depressed and uncomfortable. Ning Chui was stunned. He knew that he had always been cold-hearted and cold-hearted. He was not related to Miss Ling, so he shouldn't have cared about her life or death at all. But why was his heart so painful and sad when he heard that she was not going to die soon? Han Yao has been unconscious since she was bitten by Chef Su. Princess Ding Yuan was worried. Seeing that the imperial doctor was there, she hurriedly asked the palace maid to help her over and let the imperial doctor diagnose her pulse. Unexpectedly, when I heard the imperial doctor's words, I felt a sudden pain in my heart and my body swayed. King Dingyuan and the others saw that she looked unhappy and thought she was worried about Han Yao's health. But no one knew the doubts in Princess Dingyuan's heart at this time. Han Yao was bitten by a ghost. Although she was worried, she didn't feel any heartache. Why did she feel heartbroken and almost suffocated when she heard the doctor's words? It was as if her daughter would die soon. Princess Dingyuan suddenly felt a little guilty for Han Yao. She felt that she was in a daze. How could she feel that Ling Chu was her daughter? Princess Dingyuan wanted to focus on Han Yao, but her eyes couldn't help but fall on Ling Chu. Seeing that her face was so pale that it was almost transparent, she felt a dull pain in her heart, and she couldn't help but want to take her to Prince Dingyuan's palace. But thinking about the conflict between Han Yao and her, she sighed deeply. The emperor also didn't expect that Ling Chu's health was so bad that she almost fainted. Naturally, he couldn't let her treat the wounds of concubine and the others. Thinking of Ling Chu's rescue action just now, the emperor asked the imperial doctor to prescribe a prescription, and then gave him a bunch of supplements to nourish the body, in addition to 1,000 taels of silver and a lot of silk and silk. When Lu Liulia went crazy, Ling Chu stood in front of the emperor and the queen mother, which could be regarded as saving the queen mother. In full view of the public, the queen mother could not remain silent and rewarded her with 2 sets of headgear. Concubine was demoted to the rank of virtuous concubine, and she and the second prince were bitten by ghosts. The queen felt that these were all due to Ling Chu. After all, if she hadn't figured out that there were puffer fish in Jinghua Palace, it wouldn't have caused so many incidents later. Thanks to book friends such as The Heart is Too Crowded, 201710062015571226, 2022032710335831, etc. for their monthly support. Thanks to 201703181914308335, Daoeo. EB, Daoeo. EB, Pros. BA, Why We Grow Old, 202305070055111920. Colorful Life, 201811281005066706, Yuan Wan, Yangliuan, Huiwai.ea, Penyong Fang, 202301210127022243. 854-729, 202307301137026442, Wanfan Carat, 15021620352969, Yunyun Zongshen, Muqianqian, Sankai. DB, the hacked book friend keeps rechecking in, Kixi Yao, Lalunzixi, Deo Skarhong, Chen, Ixixi, Silent Blessing, 2023-033-1230. De, CHLWCH. Chern Rong, Chen Rong, this moment, laugh with you, the heart is too crowded the heart is too crowded 20090811, forget me not, Xiao you are 408, Pros. BA, 641,417, cm. EA and other book friends recommendation votes support. Thanks to Hungziu and the book friends who support Hungziu. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times. Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 289. The queen has been fighting with concubine for many years, but has been unable to suppress her. She can only watch her being favored day by day. Unexpectedly, the first time Ling Chu entered the palace, she lost the title of noble concubine, which was a relief for her and the prince. Although the queen doesn't like Ling Chu, she can restrain concubine and the second prince, which makes it worth her to win over. The emperor and the queen mother both gave gifts, and the queen naturally did not miss this great opportunity to win over Ling Chu, so she also gave a lot of gifts. Concubine was so angry that her face turned black. The angrier concubine became, the happier the queen felt. Xianfei, thanks to Miss Ling today, otherwise you and the second prince may not be safe, and the emperor and the queen mother will also be affected by you. Concubine stared at the queen with slightly narrowed phoenix eyes. She was hinting that the emperor and the queen mother had rewarded her as well. Ling Chu rescued her and the second prince, so he couldn't help but express his gratitude. This caused her to lose her position as a noble concubine, and she and Muir were bitten. Concubine wanted to kill Ling Chu, so why would she be willing to give her a reward? It can be seen that the emperor and the queen mother are looking at her, and concubine has to grit her teeth and follow the reward. When the queen saw this, she felt even more happy. Ling Chu originally didn't want concubine An's things, but she was still in a coma and couldn't refuse. Seeing that Ning Chui's face remained gloomy, the emperor hesitated for a while and finally asked him to send Ling Chu back. The queen was in a good mood. Seeing that Ling Chu was still unconscious, she signaled the palace maids to help Xiaji take her to the carriage. She also sent the things she, the emperor, the queen mother and concubine had given her to the carriage. When Princess Ding Yuan saw the palace maid escorting Ling Chu out of the palace, she subconsciously wanted to follow her, but Han Yao woke up at this moment and grabbed her sleeve with a frightened and helpless expression. Seeing Han Yao like this, Princess Ding Yuan couldn't help feeling guilty and could only sigh secretly. Even though the second prince and concubine hated Ling Chu very much in their hearts, the wounds on their bodies were hurting and they were in no mood to say anything. The imperial doctor was helpless to do anything about the wound bitten by Yin Hun. Concubine could only ask the emperor to have someone invite the Taoist priest of Kong Sugwan into the palace. The palace maid put Ling Chu into the carriage, and the guards left with the carriage. Although Ling Chu pretended to be dizzy, he felt extremely tired after entering the palace today. After leaving the palace, he relaxed his body and mind and fell asleep directly. Ning Chui followed her on horseback to her. She thought she would wake up after leaving the palace, but unexpectedly there was no movement in the carriage. Thinking of what the imperial doctor said, I couldn't help but reach out and lift the curtains of the car. Xiaji was covering Ling Chu with a thin blanket when she noticed the movement. She turned her head and saw Ning Chui, and whispered in a low voice, "The girl is asleep. If you have something to do, sir, can we talk about it later?" Ning Chui's eyes swept across that transparent white face, and when he saw that her breathing was still smooth, the stone in her heart dropped. Gently nodded towards Xiaji and lowered the car curtain. Wei Feng followed on horseback. When he saw Ning Chui's actions, he frowned again and again. He always felt that there seemed to be something unusual about the master. But what exactly it was, he couldn't tell. Just as he was about to take a closer look, Ning Chui suddenly glanced at him lightly. Wei Feng was immediately startled, and hurriedly recovered his thoughts and rode his horse to the front to lead the way. The guard drove the carriage back to the door of the house, and Xiaji woke up Ling Chu and helped her down. Ning Chui sat on the horse, his eyes paused on her face, and then quickly looked away. "Since you are not in good health, you will have to work less hard in the future if you don't want to risk your life. Spend more time and rest well. Use the medicinal materials given by the emperor as you should, and don't leave them gathering dust in the warehouse. If you need anything, you can ask the guard to send a letter to Wei Feng." Ling Chu frowned, feeling a little confused. Master Ning sounded like he cared about her, but his attitude was clearly cold. It seems that he is a completely different person than when he first entered the palace. Could it be that Lord Ning was dissatisfied with her behavior in the palace, allowing Lulu and Chef Su to hurt so many people without stopping, thinking she was too hard-hearted? Ling Chu sighed inwardly, that's all. She was not related to Ning Chui, so it was normal for her to be dissatisfied with her actions. Although these thoughts flashed through his mind, Ling Chu didn't show it on his face. He only bowed and said, "Thank you for your concern, sir. I know it well." She didn't take Ning Chui's words to heart. It was impossible to take a rest. Although the emperor gave her a lot of tonics, they were far from enough. She had to rely on a steady stream of merit to survive. Ling Chu saluted and thanked him, with a clear attitude of respect and thorough etiquette. But for some reason, Ning Chui suddenly felt a twist in his heart. The lips moved, but when the words came to his lips, he swallowed them back. His eyes flickered on her bloodless face, and she said nothing in the end. Caught the reins in his hand, clamped the horse's belly with his legs, and spurred the horse away. Wei Feng glanced at Ning Chui's back, then turned to look at Ling Chu. His brows are knitted high. Why does he feel that his elders are weird, and so does Miss Ling? It seems like a quarrel and a conflict. But before entering the palace, the two of them were clearly in good company. In the palace, he was always with Ning Chui and did not see any conflicts between them. Why did he suddenly become so polite and distant? Made him feel uncomfortable for no reason. Ning Chui has already walked far away, while Wei Feng is still distracted. Ling Chu glanced at him strangely. Master Wei, is there something wrong? Wei Feng came back to his senses and wanted to say something, but he had no idea what was going on between Ling Chu and Ning Chui, and he couldn't even ask. In the end, he could only cup his hands and hurriedly rode away. Although Ling Chu slept in the carriage for a while, he still felt tired. Even though she felt that Ning Chui and Wei Feng were both weird, she didn't have the energy to pay attention to them, so she turned around and went into the house to rest. After Ling Chu left the palace, the Taoist priest of Kongsu Temple entered the palace and treated the wounds of Concubinen, the second prince, and Han Yao. The king of Dingyuan and his wife took their two sons and Han Yao back to their home. Seeing that Han Yao was not in danger, King Dingyuan and Han Lin and his son hurried back to the barracks to handle official duties after dinner. Han Yao went to the main courtyard after washing up. When she saw Princess Dingyuan, she looked hesitant and said, "Concubine, can I sleep with you tonight?" Princess Dingyuan saw that her expression was not good, and she thought it was something that happened in the palace, which frightened her, and she couldn't help but feel a little guilty. "Okay, it just so happens that your father is not here, so you will sleep with your mother and concubine tonight." Han Yao immediately smiled softly and stepped forward to hold her arm. "Concubine, you are so kind." Princess Dingyuan touched her head lovingly. Mother and daughter were lying on the bed, chatting. Princess Dingyuan was poisoned in the palace. Although she took Ling Chu's antidote, so many things happened later, which made her nervous all the time. I would relax and lie down on the bed, and soon I would fall asleep. It's just that I didn't sleep peacefully, and suddenly started talking in my dream. Han Yao, who was lying aside, heard those murmurs and stared at Princess Dingyuan. "Where are the votes? Come to my bowl quickly. I made a fortune by raiding houses in ancient times." Author, Half-Life Calligraphy. Chapter 290. Chapter 290 Birthmark. At first, be careful. On the bed, Princess Dingyuan suddenly screamed and sat up quickly before opening her eyes. Han Yao quickly put away the ferocious expression on her face, replaced it with a worried look, rushed forward and gently supported her arm, saying urgently, "Mother, mother." Princess Dingyuan saw Han Yao's anxious and worried expression and said apologetically, "Why did Yao Yao wake up? Was it the mother who woke you up? Did it scare you?" Han Yao smiled and shook her head. "Don't worry, concubine, I'm fine." After a pause, he asked tentatively, "Have you been caught in a nightmare? Are you so anxious? What did you dream about?" Princess Dingyuan frowned slightly and covered her heart with one hand. She couldn't even remember what she was dreaming about. There was only chaos in his mind and his heart beating rapidly. She seemed to have dreamed about many things, but she couldn't remember them at all. Princess Dingyuan rubbed her temples with her hands. For some reason, she felt vaguely that she had forgotten something very important. She subconsciously wanted to remember it. But when she thought deeply, she felt a dull pain in her head. Han Yao saw that she remained silent and was about to ask again. The maid Han Kiao, who was sleeping outside on night watch, was worried when she heard the noise, so she hurriedly came in to check with the lamp in hand. Seeing a thin layer of sweat on Princess Dingyuan's forehead, She worriedly asked, "Princess, why are you sweating so much? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Please ask the imperial doctor to take a pulse on you." The maid interrupted her thoughts, and Princess Dingyuan came back to her senses. Although there is a dedicated imperial doctor in the palace, it is already late at night, and Princess Dingyuan does not want to alarm the whole family because of a trivial matter. He shook his head at the maid and said, "There's no need to call a doctor. It's just a nightmare. I'll just take it easy." Princess Dingyuan didn't want to call in the imperial doctor, and Han Qiao couldn't say anything else. "Shall I bring you a coat to change into?" Princess Dingyuan woke up from her dream, sweating a lot, and felt sticky and uncomfortable. "Go and get me some warm water, I want to take a bath." Han Qiao nodded, "Princess, wait a moment, I'll go right away." Han Yao pursed her lips and glanced at the fine sweat on Princess Dingyuan's forehead. She got out of bed, poured a cup of tea and brought it over. "Concubine, drink some water first." Princess Dingyuan continued with a smile and drank half a cup in one breath. Sighed and looked at Han Yao, "It's my mother's fault, I disturb you and you can't sleep peacefully. As long as the mother-in-law is fine, Yao Yao can sleep at any time." Princess Dingyuan clapped her hand happily and said, "My concubine is fine, don't worry. It's just that you are still injured, so you need to have a good rest. How about I ask the maid to accompany you back to your yard?" "Princess, the hot water is ready." As soon as Princess Dingyuan finished speaking, Han Qiao came in with two maids carrying a wooden bucket and placed it behind the screen. Han Yao glanced at it, turned around and said with a smile, "Concubine, go take a bath. You are sweating, so don't catch a cold. I'm such a big person now, so mother-in-law doesn't have to worry, I can just ask Menu to take me back to the courtyard. No matter how old you are still a child in the eyes of the concubine," Princess Dingyuan said with a smile on her face. "The concubine knows that you have grown up, so she will not nag you so much. You can ask the maid to bring more lanterns to avoid the disaster. I can't see my sprained feet clearly." "Okay, Yao Yao knows it. Concubine, please go and take a bath." After watching Princess Dingyuan turn around and go to the screen, Han Yao suppressed her smile and walked out. But she did not leave the main courtyard, but went to the small kitchen. Princess Dingyuan was served by the maid, took off her clothes and got into the bathtub. At this time, I felt sleepy and no longer sleepy. Princess Dingyuan was soaking in the bathtub, but her head ached slightly. Han Qiao saw that her expression was not good. "Princess, your head is not feeling well, can I please press it for you?" The princess nodded lightly, "That's fine." Han Qiao raised her hand and gently touched her temples. It was a cold night, so Han Qiao didn't dare to let the princess soak for too long. Seeing that her expression seemed to have relaxed a little, Han Qiao hurriedly helped her out of the bathtub. As Han Qiao was using a handkerchief to wipe herself with the princess, Han Qiao suddenly said in surprise, "Princess, why are you so red here?" Princess Dingyuan lowered her head following her gaze, and there was a small red mark on the skin above her navel. "It's okay, it was a bit itchy just now, I scratched it, maybe it was a bit too hard." Although Princess Dingyuan gave birth to 3 children, she has always maintained a good figure. Her skin is still as white and smooth as when she was a girl. That small red mark on her body is not ugly. Han Qiao breathed a sigh of relief, and while dressing her, he joked, "Princess, your skin is so good, this slave with red scars looks like an phoenix, which makes your skin even fairer. Oh, why does this phoenix tail flower slave look more and more like a birthmark? She is so beautiful." Princess Dingyuan was listening with a smile, but suddenly her expression was startled, and something seemed to flash in her mind. "It was just too fast and I didn't catch it." Subconsciously, he reached out and grabbed Han Qiao. "What did you just say?" Han Qiao was a little confused by her sudden movement, which showed that her expression was not right, So she hurriedly said, "Slave, I said that the princess's skin is really good." "That's not the sentence." Han Kiao's mind was spinning. What she just said was just a casual joke, and there seemed to be nothing wrong with it. I wonder why the princess looked so anxious? Han Kiao was suspicious, seeing that the princess was staring at her closely, and quickly repeated what she had just said. The slave said, "The red mark on the princess's body looks like an phoenix flower, and it makes your skin even whiter." Oops, why does this phoenix tail flower slave look more and more like a birthmark? She is so beautiful. There was a loud bang in Princess Dingyuan's mind, and it seemed that many messy pictures flashed quickly in front of her eyes. He was stunned for a long time and suddenly murmured, "Phoenix flower birthmark." Han Yao, who had just walked into the dormitory with a tray, paused. The expression on her face kept changing, and she held the tray firmly with both hands. Han Kiao saw that Princess Dingyuan's face suddenly turned pale, her eyes closed, and her body swayed. He hurriedly supported her with both hands. "Princess, princess, are you feeling unwell?" Princess Dingyuan closed her eyes several times before slowly opening them. "I'm fine." Han Kiao was suspicious, but she didn't feel comfortable asking, "Princess, you'd better ask the imperial doctor to come over and take your pulse." Princess Dingyuan shook her head and said with a pale face, "After daybreak, ask Manager Han to send someone to Zhuangzi to bring Nanny Feng into the house." Mother Feng was the dowry of Princess Dingyuan. In the early years, the princess took pity on her and worked hard for her for most of her life. She was not allowed to serve her anymore and she was only raised in the palace. But Nanny Feng couldn't rest, and she still got up early every day to serve the princess. "Once I accidentally fell down and it took me half a year to recover." The princess saw that she was still restless, and a grandson happened to be born in her family, so she cancelled Nanny Feng's slave status and gave her a large sum of money to send her to the village to reunite with her family. Her health and bones were still good before, and the princess would occasionally ask the steward to send a car to Zhuangzi to pick her up and bring her into the mansion to talk. It was only in recent years that the princess saw that Nanny Feng was too old and was worried about something going wrong on the way, so she rarely brought her back. Han Kiao thought that Princess Dingyuan must have missed Grandma Feng again, so she wanted to take her into the house to talk. Thanks to 120902134521123 book friends for their monthly support. Thank you Xiao, 2017031819143085, This Moment, Laugh With You, All Living Things, Dusty Memory, 2023-033-1230. De, Penyong Fang, Chen, UN1, Why You Grow Old, Scar Red, 20090811, On the Water Side. DD, China Fuse, Xiao Yuer 408, Firefox, Pros. BA, Kingsha Makeup, Strong Wind, and Lightning. 202301210127022243 Panax Noto Ginseng. DB1502162035296890. 0808292220201007, 1402121840214228, CHLWCH, Smile, Now, XXC, Colorful Life, Bye Bye Yan Future, Chen Rong, and other book friends support. Thanks to Hungzio and Xiaoxiang for supporting book friends. End of this chapter.